Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Live Talk at Life Christian Church. I'm your host, Andre Arkapchuk, and I have a special guest with me, Yuriy Bots, all the way from north of Kansas City, Missouri, and he's here visiting, and it's just a pleasure to have you, Yuriy.
Thank you, Andre.
You're welcome. We're going to have, I believe, really just nice time having here a discussion. I just want to start off by just asking you about your personal life.
Yes.
Who are you? Where are you from? What is your life about or composed of? What kind of maybe pivotal moments have you had in your life that shaped you?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. I hope and I know we'll have a great conversation. So a little bit about me. Yes, welcome to everyone who's joining us. My name is Yuriy Bots. I am from Ivano-Frankivsk originally, grew up there. That's where I got saved. That's where I got my education. That's where sort of I spent all of my days before I left for US. So I didn't travel that much. So Ivano-Frankivsk is my hometown. Little other things, pivotal moments. I would say there were a few, right? One of them, I think, I was. As I reflect on this, one of the great moments was when my dad sent me to an English school. He said, you have to study the language, you have to know it. If you know another language, it's like you're another person. So I remember him sending me to an English school. That's where I met some great friends. And that was a big change for me. That's what allowed me later to come to the United States because I could speak the language. Also, I came to God in Ivano-Frankivsk. First time I heard the gospel there when I was a teenager, probably 10 or 12 years old. It was the Word of Faith ministry. I think they still function. It's Copeland's that did it. So I think that was my first exposure. That was a pivotal moment. Then later, when I came to God, that was another pivotal moment. Then my career started there. I pursued a degree in economics. I loved it, and my first job was there. And so that was also pivotal to sort of, I guess, decide to go for it. Then I left for the United States to further pursue my education. That was a big decision and a moment in life where you're leaving your country behind and coming here. So yeah, these are a couple pivotal moments that come to mind before me coming here. And then in the United States, there's more pivotal moments, but I think, maybe we keep them short to what in Ukraine.
Yeah. So you said you heard about God through the Word of Faith movement?
Yeah, so it was Kenneth and Gloria Copeland, I believe that was their name, in the 90s.
They streamed it there.
In the 90s, they did TV shows. So what was it? Maybe like 92 and 93 when Ukraine just get independent, maybe 95. So I was probably, 10, 11, 12. And then they would send these booklets to follow up or something like that. So I remember I had the booklet, they'll say, like, what are you living for? Or something like that.
Yeah.
So, I have not many memories. I have some memories about it. So, that I think that ministry has impacted probably a lot of people during that time.
Okay, I got you. That's interesting beginning of your life, and it was very wise of your dad to get you to learn English.
Yes.
Wise man. Not always something maybe we want to, but later in life we assess and it's
very
effective.
helpful, yeah.
How would you say God called you into your current ministry or career? And you already mentioned how old you were when you were saved?
I was 17.
17.
So right before going to college. And then my career, I always wanted to do economics for better or for worse. And I'm saying for better or for worse, my parents want me to go into a medical field. And I never felt like that's something I wanted to do. So I fought them and I always said, no, I'm going to go do economics. And I did that. I just always found it interesting. It's a social science. It studies people and how they behave and how it relates to money. And everyone likes to talk about money. And then there's so many aspects to economics that I found attractive. So that's the beginnings of sort of the career thing. But in the ministry sense, as a lot of maybe our viewers know, if you grow up in church, you always do something. around church, and our church had a lot of different projects and things some things that I started with friends, or I joined someone who did something, or I was asked to do it. So in the ministry perspective, when I was younger, so you do a lot of things, a lot of different things. But later on, my career and ministry merged, because I discovered I really love teaching, and you can do it professionally for your career. You can also do it for ministry, and that kind of worked out. So at some point, those paths kind of merged.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's a good moment when you can kind of find it where you
find
know,
a little
fits
balance, I guess. Yeah.
I already mentioned this to you today earlier, but my parents were also wanting me to go into medicine, but I actually ended up going to medicine.
Up going.
Yeah, I do ministry too, so that's great. But yeah, that's interesting how sometimes you could kind of go.
Sometimes we listen
go
to
your
the
own
advice.
route.
It works. Yeah. Sometimes we do our own thing.
And it works.
It works too. Yeah.
That's funny. Maybe a deeper question or personal, but if you're willing or open, what are some personal challenges you had to overcome in your walk with God, with the Lord?
Yeah, this is a good question. I think, I think when I came to God, so I didn't grow up in church, so I was 17, right? So I came to God pretty much, not later in life, but no, I didn't grow up in church. So I came to God it was very conscious decision and focused. I heard the gospel, I believed it.
Yeah.
And so I got involved right away, and I don't think I had any major slowdown. I would always be involved in something. So the challenges from a ministry perspective, maybe some people are watching here from the ministry perspective, since I came later, it was like a conscious decision, so it was not a lot of challenges in that way. I think some things that come to mind is, number one is to remain consistent to persist in many areas where you have to do things that sometimes lose their sort of attractiveness. So I think for a ministry, the challenge is to never sort of lose that sense in which God is calling you to do it, and have the discipline to follow up. So I think the challenge of having a discipline and being persistent and keeping your integrity is always there, because, and that's not just ministry, just life in general. To be a person of integrity is always a challenge, to make sure that your words align with what you do. And in that sense, it's always, especially if you're a teacher like me, if you teach economics, or you teach this, or you teach time management like we did today, you have to practice those things. You can't just talk about them. Yeah. And people know that, people notice that, but it's not even that's important, but your internal condition. So I think the challenge is to continue to be open, to look into your life and to be honest with yourself and say, I'm coming short here, I'm living up to my standard here, I'm doing very good here, where maybe no one even knows and doesn't need to know, but you have to assess all of that spectrum. And I think probably the general challenge is just to remain really honest with yourself, because it's, I think that's a very general answer, but I feel like it's something that I think about, something I care about, and something I feel like it gives your ministry and your work and your personality, gives that edge when you are honest with yourself and you're honest with others, and it really shows. There's no way around it. So I think that's the challenge that I feel like, yes, that's something that I have to continually think about and continue sort of on that path of making sure I'm consistent.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. One interesting remark you made, I don't know, personally, I'm interested just to hear. You were born in a home, or let's say in a setting where you didn't know God, but then later you discovered God. Yeah. How about the rest of your family today? Did they come to the Lord, or where's that?
So my parents, they did not come to my church. My mom believes in God, but she's not attending an evangelical church. I shared the gospel with my parents as well. My dad is more agnostic, I think, and we also talked about it. He's not denying God, but he's also has other ideas about how the world works. So at this stage, I think I chatted with my parents multiple times, and they know it, and this is not a surprise for them, or that They know I'm a believer. We talked about it, and I think they're processing some things. Really, is not something that a human to human cannot explain. Like I remember maybe 2 years ago, they asked me something like, "Do you really believe that you'll be raised from the dead? That after your body decomposes, it will be?" I think it's a reasonable question of an unbeliever. Say, if that's at the core of your faith, the resurrection from the dead, then do you really believe it? And I told them, I think I really believe it. They say, this is really like sci-fi, right? And I told them what the Bible says about it and how Paul was trying to describe that idea. And I think some of these conversations, we continue having them, and they reach them. But I think the decision, that's something that that they have not made to openly accept Christ, and that's something that I continue to be thoughtful about and praying and being also a witness to them the way I live, and they do notice that, and they do tell me that how my character has changed and how they are proud of me. So I think I hear from them that there's a good witness there, but there are some things, I guess, that are still holding them back, and that's something that continues to be the area of prayer and conversation.
Right. Well, that's an interesting moment you mentioned, but I think like for me and for other people, like hearing that's different perspective, but of course there's people who come from that perspective or from that walk of life, and I think just hearing that can encourage them, because sometimes years down the road you're looking and you're like, am I seeing change or not? But the point you made about them noticing changes about you at times, I think really just helps us realize and helps people think that a lot of that has to be internal first, work God first does in you. You want to change your parents right away. You discover the gospel. You want to change your friends right away. But if they don't see the change first in you, that they might not be affected or influenced.
And that goes for the whole church, right? I think people that are outside of the church, right? They are watching us. They are watching our life. And back to that comment of integrity and consistency, that's also something that holds people back. So I think, yes, I try, like all of us, not all of us are evangelists in the sense of by calling, but all of us are called to be a witness. So in that sense, someone mentioned that comment, we're going maybe off topic, but I think one friend of mine told me, said, for years I was worried how to really attract people a lot, and then said, now God is prompting me more and more to think about how to not be a stumbling block. And I think it's both perspective of valid and helpful to both to try to share the gospel and speak to people in that way, but also try to not be a stumbling block. That sometimes our actions and behaviors and things are really, people look at us and say, I don't want anything to do with that. If you profess to be that and go to church and you're like that, I think that stumbling block is also partially something that holds people back, and I think it's good to keep both in mind. Yeah, so that's a good comment. Yeah.
Never pleasant to hear when someone says, "I've seen those. I've seen those kind of Christians. I don't want to be like them."
That's
it's not encouraging.
That's on us. That's something that as a church, as individuals, and as a church in general, that something we should care about, and something that does have an impact. People can catch these things.
Taking up our responsibility in our side of it. You were talking about, we were talking about just earlier about that inward work, how we have to work on ourselves. And this morning, actually today, we have a youth conference with United Youth here in Washington State. And our topic is Pursuit of God, but a subtopic of that this morning was a training for leaders on time management. We're talking about that working on yourself. Question for you. Why did you agree to do it? Why is it important for you to talk about that to young people? What value does that bring to you?
First of all, you invited me. We have a great relationship, and I say yes when you invite me. Second of all, teaching, I heard this simple truth that people say, leaders lead and teachers teach and craftsmen craft something and creators create. And so it's a very simple truth, but as someone who identifies as a teacher, like I see it as something that I do, and it's a part of my identity. I just feel like whenever there comes opportunity, unless I really cannot make it, I usually try to find every way to do it. So that's the second one, that I feel like it's a part of something that I want to do. And I think what attracted me to is time management as a perspective is something I worked on and studied and tried to implement. And I do see that not a lot of things change until you change how you use the time that you have. And I feel it's useful for me personally, and I hope that that is of use to someone. So every teacher, if you ask any teacher, the goal is not a transfer of information. The goal is the change in the life of a person that's listening. And that's a very high calling and very, it puts demands on the teacher, and it encourages us as teachers to prepare, to work for it, to teach, because you hope that what you say and what you worked on, what you deliver, tilts someone's lives and changes it. And there's, for a teacher, there's nothing better than to see that you made a difference. And like for everyone, for every profession, you want to make a meaningful difference in the world. And for a teacher is sharing something that makes that impact. And I think whenever I get a chance, I want to say yes. So,
That's awesome.
And I love coming here. I love what this church is doing and how things are run here. And this is a very generous church and loving church. And it's just great to be in that environment too. I always look forward to this. So whatever you receive from me, I'm sure I receive more in return when I come and visit and get, because you get input from people who want to hear you and care for you. So that's that too.
Thank you for also being someone that says yes.
Yeah.
So that's the younger generation, and these kind of things you might have recycled it a lot in your life, and you've already learned it and learned it, but for somebody else it shocks them. Today I overheard Anna talking to you how 7 years ago she heard you talking time management and maybe another or another section to that topic, and she was saying that she remembered it and she even has the papers, and it made her change her life. She deleted her social media, didn't have it for 7 years until she had to get it for a business purpose, which is like, you hear that that's a shocking decision someone makes for a young person. That's a radical decision, but somebody's investing, somebody's teaching. I didn't hear her talk with resentment, rather with appreciation. So thank you again. I'm sure the people you're investing in, the
challenging thing about teaching, right, is waiting. I said, you should have told me earlier. But I remember we had some challenge, and I told them, because I knew they really loved their social media. I said, can you just delete an app? And you can reinstall it, but just give it a day. And if you really want it, you really can't live without it. So I was trying to be not legalistic about it, but just prompt them to say, hey, give it a day. And I guess maybe in that way, she deleted and stayed with it and realized I don't need it. So this is a great example. Thank you for reminding me. It makes our work worthwhile when you see that something as small, right?
It was pleasant for me to hear too.
Makes a difference. That's a great story.
I'm confident that there will be more people like that. Even from today, I'm confident people received something and they're going to take into practice.
I do hope that.
So thank you for that. Flipping topics a little bit. You were born in Ivano-Frankivsk. You came from Ukraine to United States, and you got involved in a American church from the beginning, if I'm not mistaken, and that's Vineyard Church.
Yeah, so originally, actually, when I came here, I was with the campus ministry. There was Assemblies of God campus ministry, Kayafa, so maybe some of our listeners are familiar with. So Kayafa is Assemblies of God outreach to campuses. So there was 5 years of that ministry. And then when I graduated and moved to Kansas City, I attended an Assemblies of God church, and a friend of mine, and I made a connection there, and then a friend of mine invited me to Vineyard Church, so I thought I'll visit as well. And then my friend from Assemblies of God Church had to leave abruptly. Something changed in his life, so the connection that I made, he left, and then another friend invited me to this church, and I went, and I liked it, and I thought I'm going to come a couple more times, and then I decided I really don't like switching. I like to stay with things, so I thought, I like this church, I'll stay with it. It was planted 24 years ago, and it has grown to like 2,000 or 3,000 people at that point. And I just found something different, and I guess, Vineyard ministry in the 70s and 80s to what I know a little bit about the ministry. It was a church planting ministry that was also influenced by a prophetic ministry that was going on during that time. So there's overlap also with a little bit with a ministry that's now in Kansas City that runs the IHOP, the House of Prayer. There's some cross-pollination there between those movements. And Vineyard was very down to earth, very practical, and also very grace-oriented. And I've enjoyed a slightly new perspective and angle on some things. And I said, I'll stay with the church. So that's how I got connected to Vineyard and then plugged into small group ministry. And I stayed there. We had, so that's now, what is it now, 20, it's hard to believe. I came in 2013, so it's almost 10 years.
Happy 10-year anniversary.
Yes, it's coming up, yeah.
That's actually a different story than most Slavic people. Most Slavic people come here, they came maybe under status of refugee, whatever it may have been. Like, I came here in 2000, a lot of other people, probably a lot of our viewers are going to be people who came here, and their story most likely is that they went into a Slavic church. Did you feel like you were missing out the fact that because when you got plugged into Kayafa, that was American movement. Did you feel like you were missing out, or what did you learn? Like, I'm sure you got some kind of comparison.
It was just, Assemblies of God it's a Pentecostal movement. So in that sense, when you came to US, there's nothing of a Ukrainian church on campus. So, and you want to have a campus ministry. So you don't, and so in that area, I don't believe there are any Slavic churches. So there was no option. But also, it's so exciting. You move to a new country, you're a student, and there's this ministry that's on campus. And a lot of our leaders were influenced by the Navigators, which is discipleship making ministry. So I got introduced to a lot of those ideas. So by no means, I never had this idea of comparison or missing something. I was quite involved in Ukraine. So when I came here, I just wanted to be involved and do something. And I found a group that was good. And I don't think I ever... It's interesting to hear the question. I don't think I've ever actively was comparing it. When you start being in different environments and seeing different groups of believers, there are differences, but at the very core, there's so many things that are common between people who love God and want to serve God, that I've been in groups that are very different from Pentecostal movement. I've been in groups that are very close, and in all of those groups, you see people who genuinely love God and to the best of their understanding of the Word of God, move forward with integrity, being different from each other, but still that trait of just fearing God and wanting to please Him and wanting to do something good in the world, it just persists. Yeah. So when I came there was not, I never thought of it in those terms, actually. And then when I switched to Vineyard, very similar. I came there, I loved the pastor. I loved that they reached a lot of people outside. And he was an evangelist by calling. He transitioned out, so we have a new pastor now. So he started the church, and that was also new to me, because on campus it was hard to attract people. It was always this, a lot of campus is very intellectual and a lot of engineers and things like that. So at Vineyard, I found another aspects of Christian church, and in that particular case, it was a church that was geared toward attracting a lot of new people. Gotcha. And so with all of those transitions, it was not, you compare it and you can say, well, there's things better here, but you stay with it, and if the church genuinely seeks God, it just every church has their strength and has their weaknesses. So I thought of it in those terms, that I found a group that I believe does something that matters. And every group does something better than others, I've noticed. So I have this privilege. I do feel like I've been in more different environments. Yeah. Maybe I'm more open to it. Maybe because I moved and I felt a freedom to switch, and I didn't move with my family. So for one reason or another, I've sort of been in those different environments, and I have enjoyed it. Yeah.
I'm going to make a conclusion. You tell me if you agree with that. Is that no matter which church you have been in, no matter which setting, if there's people who love Jesus,
yes,
you're a home.
Conclusion. Yeah. And there are people that can teach you a thing or two. We are often in our pockets, and we think that we we literally sometimes act as if we are the final word on the Bible. Like and I put myself there, when I was growing up, the same way, I think, every opinion I hold, I think I'm right on this one. And when you go through hundreds of opinions and theological ideas, and then you realize there's 8 billion people on the planet, and maybe a third of them are confessing Christians or something like that, then you think, probably less, you think that it cannot be maybe that I am the only right way. So in certain sense, I gained appreciation through that there are other opinions and other views, and people live pretty successfully and achieve a lot of things for God that I have not achieved and have not attempted, and they hold somewhat different beliefs than me. So I think, you're right. There are people who love God. There are people who
100%.
serve Him and who do a lot, and there are things to learn.
Amen.
And for that, I'm grateful that I was sort of able to be in these environments and pick up the best things. Yeah.
I think it's probably dangerous to have that kind of mindset where you think you have it all down or you have the right way, and then later in life you're shocked or surprised by a certain situation or seeing it from a different perspective. Yeah. Marriage is a good teacher of that too. You come in and you think you have it all down, and you learn. And
then you don't. You realize that you don't. That another person has another opinion. Yes.
Yeah.
And they actually might be right.
And they also think they're right.
Something like that, I guess. Yeah. It's somewhat of a good analogy. Yeah.
Good life is a good teacher, as they say, right?
And it's good. That's an important conversation. I think we would benefit from. In general, in life, to be a little bit humbler about what we hold true and what we know, because other people like us have their experiences and have their things, and they're as valid as ours. And God is also God. When there's of course that conversation about if an elephant is big and everyone grabs an elephant to wherever they grab him, we will describe a very different thing. So of course God is not an elephant, but God is much bigger than us, and I think we have our own experiences with God that sometimes seem to contradict others, but in the grand scheme, they probably not.
That's a really nice. That's a really nice metaphor. I'm gonna have to use that. The elephant one. It's true too. That's a good point. How would you say Vineyard Church is currently doing? What are some things you guys are actively doing around projects? Maybe.
Yeah.
You maybe specifically.
The Vineyard Church has went through a lot of transition during the past couple of years with COVID, and that hit a lot of churches in different ways when they had to disperse and come back. We had a pastoral transition, our main executive pastor. Then we had multiple pastors transition, and most of them, God is calling people in Vineyards. Part of the mission and vision of Vineyard is to release leaders into the ministry. So I think Vineyard has successfully released a lot of leaders, go into pastoral roles, go into different churches, or launching a church. I think one, probably two, I don't remember now, maybe 2 or 3 churches launched during these 20 years, and another pastor left to another small group pastor left to pastor a church that's already existing. So a lot of that momentum has been going on. So overall, I would say this has been overall a challenging years for the church because of these multiple transitions. A lot of our church sees a lot of people come in and go. It's a very fluid environment. In American culture and society, people move a lot. People change churches a lot. People move locations. I think average is something like, on average, every person moves 7 times during their lifetime. Even like it's like I am already been here, for 14 years, and I think I moved three times. So it's like that. The environment is like that, and I think the church has also seen a lot of that in our leadership team. So, and we are reestablishing after the COVID. I think our church peaked in terms of attracting new believers and raising those, and our small groups actually had a higher reach than the size of the church, which is very rare in the church world.
What was the difference?
I think, I think the way the system was built, it was a system that encouraged participation of leaders and was willing to take a risk on new leaders that are not quite maybe ready yet.
Mm-hmm.
It was more a risk taking. Also, our former pastor, he was an evangelist by calling. So
Yeah.
if you have a pastor that is of
Definitely
that calling,
risk-taking.
your church is kind of always thinks to reach, and other churches have different churches have different strengths. So this particular vineyard is always had that in the vision and has done that quite effectively.
Mm-hmm.
And with the new transition, of course, there's still an emphasis on that, but small things shift the approach to the way small groups are run. Sometimes you need to reestablish them because we had a lot of transition in executive team. So I think you lose sometimes momentum, and then COVID hit, and then a couple executive transitions, and it takes its toll. And now, so we're on a sort of on an upswing now, but you need to reestablish probably even some of the old practices that we had.
I gotcha.
Yeah. So without too many details, yeah, it's been a good season, but also a challenging season.
I think probably a lot of churches, even here, it doesn't matter whether it's American or Slavic,
Yeah.
in some sense, new challenges came, especially during COVID. That was not, something. I know there was a lot of claims, or several claims. Somebody saw it coming, this and that, but most churches, let's just say, not something they saw coming, and it was a challenge. And maybe in the future will continue being a challenge. But like you said, kind of going back to what worked and finding ways to overcome the challenge, probably something every church needs today. It's interesting to hear of your, I would say, experience there. But on top of that, more recently, I know that you also took on a personal challenge yourself.
Yeah.
And that is, there's a university that was opened in Ukraine, in Kiev, an American university, and you stepped up to be what you told me is the dean over the business school,
the dean
which
of the
is,
business school there. Yeah.
I hear the name. I don't know exactly what that means, so I would love to hear what role do you play in some sense? How is your guys' university, and maybe you can fit this in your answer. How's the university doing right now during the war?
Yeah. So I want to comment on the previous one, and then I'll get to this question. One thought popped up as we were wrapping up that conversation. Some churches, in fact, didn't survive. Mm-hmm. That time, I have a pastor of a smaller church. There was like 50 or 60 people. They stopped gathering, and they were not able to recover, to pay for the building, to pay the bills. And that's just one story, and there are probably hundreds and hundreds of stories. So that reminds me, for our church, for bigger, for smaller, probably if people stopped coming and never came back, there's probably an area where the church in general is not doing so well in terms of forming a real community of people that do really know each other. That the affiliation with the church is not just a weak one, but a strong community affiliation. So I think if you stop being connected and never returned, then probably not many things held you when you were there.
Yeah.
So probably some sort of superficial attachment to that community. And now I don't want to put that I know there's so many different situations with different people, but as I reflect on that, I see that a little bit, that I question myself, well, how strong of a community we build in our churches so that when things like that happen, right, that we can stay together. But that's a community aspect that really that I'm taking away from the past couple of years. And if so many people left and didn't come back, then how good of a community we build in the church. And I say we because I'm also a part of that, trying to contribute to that community. Mm-hmm. So I'm asking how good of a community I built if it's declined so fast during those challenging years. Yeah. But leaving that aside, for the school, it is American University Kiev. It's a new university in Kiev, established in collaboration with Arizona State University. Mm-hmm. So students can study in Ukraine, and then if they want to, they can transfer and finish their education in Arizona.
That's wonderful.
The study is in English, so all courses in English. Professors, some of them are Ukrainian, but they do have to have some international experience. Mm-hmm. And some of us, of course, from the United States, as we're hired and recruited to teach courses there. And so I was recruited to the position of the dean of the school. And what you do, a dean of the school is an interesting position. It's kind of position that has access to the almost highest levels of leadership, and that also talks with all of the people on the ground that work with students, that do an incredible job of actually delivering
Sorry,
the service.
did I say challenge? Really big challenge.
Yeah. So the dean works with both the students, and listens to student feedback, works on hiring new professors, on evaluating their performance, on establishing culture. That's something that you lead by example. How you run the meetings, how you handle conflict,
Yeah.
to work talking to investors, explaining to them that this or that can or cannot be done, how you see it from academic perspective, because the dean is usually a kind of position that has someone with an academic experience in it. So I teach here in the United States, and I worked on different committees in my school here. So you get a lot of, so you also have academic responsibilities, and then of course hiring and trying to grow your team that you work with, and instructors that you hire, and helping them grow, and so professional development is another area of responsibility. So that's a little bit about the what we do, and of course everyone brings their best to the table, and it's would be impossible to do without the people that are there. And what we want to do is to establish a school in Ukraine that that brings American education to Ukraine, that students can both learn the subject matter in which they're gaining their experience in, and they can learn English and can have access to global markets, potentially after that going to study maybe in other countries and bringing that experience back. Some students might go abroad and stay there. Some will study here and stay here, and the school will be launching other things in addition to academic programs. We have a training which is called lifelong learning for professionals. We're working on launching some initiatives for entrepreneurs. So there's a lot of other tangents, not just purely academic in nature, but also professional and also entrepreneurial. And another school that we have, it's not just a business school, but software engineering, School of Software Engineering. So that's another direction. So in years to come, we hope to expand to have more degrees, to launch new schools and new programs. So this was our first semester. We're just finished that, and we're preparing for our second semester. So nice. When you hear in the United States that some schools are 150 years old, and we are literally just one semester old. And that means there's a lot of processes and systems to be established. And I'm grateful to be a part of it. I hope that our school, our big vision is just to contribute to bettering the educational system to what we can, and to be a part. There are other great universities in Ukraine. We want to be a part of that, bring what we can, and be a part of rebuilding the country. And in our case, it's mainly through providing great education to people, which builds up human capital in a country. And you can do all sorts of things. People can be professionals in their area and create businesses and build wealth in the country and be people who build. So during this war, especially when a lot of things are destroyed, we want to be a kind of place that focuses on and prepares to actually not only just talks about it, but being on the ground, and even now during the war, doing this work, and hopefully expanding as soon as the war is over. We'll have more opportunities to expand. So we want to be a part of the rebuilding effort in any way and shape we can.
That's such a cool goal, and I would say such a cool commitment, and just the dedication. I think anybody can respect that. I know you said you guys just started, and it's a young school, but every school starts somewhere. But the idea behind that, to me, I'm inspired by that, because like you just stated, I'm going to probably restate similar words, but I think they're powerful. Is while there's an influence that's destroying the country, through the war, through the missiles and whatever it may be, you would think that this is a time maybe people would give up and say, well, this is going to take forever to rebuild.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to be a part of this.
Yeah.
But you, other people, you guys are saying, no, even during this time when somebody's breaking down, we're already going to be rebuilding, starting with education, which is one of the most fundamental things. So actually, a compliment to you. Thank you for doing that. Me being myself born in Ukraine, my family, I have still some family there and a lot of people in our church and Slavic churches. So thank you for doing that. Thanks to Roman, who you work with, and other individuals. That's really cool.
Yeah, and both, investors are committed, those who invest.
Yeah.
This is a private university. People in the United States who started it, who share the vision. We have fundraising efforts going on. We have also, there's other US institutions that help countries develop, and they give financial support that are partnering with us, that have started partnering or are thinking about it. So there's many people that are coming together around this. And this is not the only initiative, but I agree with you. This is both challenging and rewarding to be a part of it. Most of the days, I try to remind myself there's some, as usual, there's days with a lot of work and where everything is maybe not going as you want it to. But thank you. It reminds us, building is hard. Creating something is hard. Destroying something is easy. Yeah. And creating something is hard. So we have to, we'll keep that mindset and
purposeful.
Keep building. Yes.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Talking a little bit about the school, it's a business school, but also you are a professor in economics here. I know you have a break right now for a year, like a sabbatical, and then maybe probably 2 years, so you can focus more on doing this work here for Ukraine and in Ukraine. But obviously, a lot of the work you do with the economy, I know that people are always interested. What kind of financial advice? Let's say, if we can, I would say keep these answers short because I can give really thorough, and I'm not expecting that, but. From your viewpoint and from your professional viewpoint, what kind of financial advice would you give to someone in Ukraine currently? And what kind of financial advice would you give someone here in the US?
I think, these questions are usually very tricky to answer. I'll say it in two ways. Number one, and those who in Ukraine, maybe someone from Ukraine is listening, I am not there. I'm not going through what they're going through. So whoever is the listener from Ukraine, take it with a grain of salt. I'm not in your shoes, and it's very, someone can say it's very easy for you to sit here on the couch and tell us what to do in Ukraine. I think one principle that works apart from that war situation, whether it's war or not, I think in one way, shape or form, investing in something that cannot be easily taken away from you is a healthy approach. So for instance, Warren Buffett, for instance, one of the richest people in the world, very humble about it, but also very successful. He says you should always, for instance, investing in education, in fact, in your knowledge, not so much formal, it can be formal education or not, it doesn't matter, but an education that is what in economics actually we call human capital. Human capital is not something that's in the book, but if that thing in the book gets into your head and you know it without it being in the book, it becomes human capital. You can do something with the knowledge you have in your head. If I always have to refer to a book or I know very little, then I cannot do anything with that. I cannot be really a professional. So I feel like one thing that's helpful, and I try to follow that advice too, and I think it's good for the United States too, to try to acquire a skill and a knowledge, kind of a set of skills or knowledge or expertise where it's inherent to you and it can benefit other people, and it is not something that can be taken away from you. So if you have a little bit of money, one way you can really save it, and if you need, everyone needs to have some savings, but if you have a chance to invest, probably investing in your own capability, trusting that you will be the best user of that money, trying to do something with that. And in all times it works. I remember my dad when they bought, it was like when computers just started appearing, and he said, "No, you must have a computer." And I said, "Why?" Because it's new technology, you will learn and it will benefit you. He always had that thinking. That's why he sent me to that school. He said, if you know the language, you can do something with it.
Oh, yeah.
So these things, when he had, and he still, of course, had that mindset that there are things that are worth investing in and developing your skill and developing yourself. So I think whether war or not, to the best we can, I think it's worth thinking, what can I do to develop myself, to help my kids develop, my family, help develop other people, because humans are ultimately the driving force before for the creation of things. Like all things we see here, we see the cameras and the microphones, right? Someone had to think of this. Someone had to design it.
Yeah.
Someone had to manufacture. Someone had to figure out the paint and the cables. And it's extremely challenging, but it's a human knowledge that God embedded into this, and this product would not exist without people knowing a thing or two about a thing or two.
Yeah.
And physics and sound waves and the lights that we have here, the building we're in, someone had to study civil engineering. So I feel like that's probably a very, not such a short answer to to a question what we can do.
Yeah.
Try to better ourselves, knowing the skills and having something that can that we can be creators and builders of things. Yeah.
Building yourself so that you could also help others as well with that.
Else,
We have some fireball questions, or like quick quick questions, but before
can I
that,
skip some of them?
if you need to, sure.
Okay.
But before that,
sometimes I don't have good answers to some of them. Okay.
Sometimes
Let's see what they are.
Sometimes that's the best ones, because they catch you off guard.
They do,
and the viewers love
see.
it.
Let's see.
So before that, one more question before we go into this. I'm just giving you a heads up so you can already keep that in the back of your mind. One more question. This is about just advice in ministry. You're somebody that you taught in time management today this morning. You're somebody that has a lot going on in your life, and you said yourself, that sometimes things aren't going right, but you got to remind yourself of that purpose. Yeah. That's some advice you're giving, but plainly put, what advice would you give for people when it comes to balancing work, life, ministry, and other factors in life? What are some pieces of advice you would give?
That's always, this is a good question. What kind of advice you would give to people? I think there's no way, maybe I can draw on what we talked today in time management. There is rarely an accomplishment of a significant matter if for our listener that was something you want to do without really focusing on something. So in terms of balance, so this is not more about balance, this is about achieving something. You would have to dedicate significant time, energy, and resources to something that needs to get done. Everyone who has done anything has done that. So there's no way around it. So it's not an advice, it's just a reminder, and I remind myself that it's not so much an advice as it's a thing that is there, and there's no way around it. It's like you will come at some point in life, and I think I remind myself too that hey, there needs to be a lot of work to be done in order to accomplish something. The other thing that I wanted to, on the opposite side of it, I feel like something I've been discovering throughout these years. My wife introduced me to a lot of these concepts because I'm always like a go kind of person. There are disciplines, not just spiritual, there's in general disciplines of life. We can call them spiritual disciplines that are disciplines of like solitude, silence, celebration, like disengaging a little bit from the world, that rest, things like that we often, as people who are driven and want to achieve something in a church setting, in a business setting, in the world, we forget about them. So I think the advice is to really, and that's something it's even the scripture you shared today from Ecclesiastes, that you have to slow down and sharpen your saw so you can, your axe, so you can work better. So rest and silence and solitude and pulling away from the world allows us to actually get a better grip on life and what we want to do, and actually achieve more. So both advice is that there is a lot of work out there, but that work is done partly by people that know how to pull away from things and to spend time meditating, reflecting, silence, solitude, again, sort of disengaging for the purpose of being more impactful in the world. And I think that the balance comes through those seasons when we engage, disengage, and I feel there are a few people who can function total engagement, but I think for most of us it'll be good to have that balance. Yes.
100%. 100%. I agree. All right. Well, thank you for that. Now to the fireball questions.
Fireball
These are
questions,
just quick
yes.
questions coming at
Okay.
you. What comes to mind first? You know that. Just go ahead. You could share it, and if you need to skip some, you can. But I think you'll enjoy some of these.
Let's do it.
All right. Favorite hobby?
I like to work on my house. Okay, I like to do it on my time off
There we go. Okay. There we go.
with my hands. Yes.
With your hands. Gotcha. Favorite food?
Favorite food. I like Thai food, and I also like. Recently, I discovered Georgian food, and that's also great. And I like Mediterranean food. I don't know. I guess I like all foods. Okay, next one.
Yeah, next one. Favorite book from the Bible?
Favorite book: Philippians and Galatians. Sorry, two books.
Two books. Okay.
Let's do Philippians.
Philippians. Okay, sounds good. Favorite novel, not from the Bible.
Favorite novel. I don't read fiction, so I read nonfiction. Maybe there's only a few books that I read. Let's skip this one. There's so few. There's like two that I read. They're not favorite. They're just only two.
They're just the ones you read. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Favorite author?
Favorite author.
Besides God.
I think Dallas Willard is one of my favorite authors.
What kind of books does he write?
Divine Conspiracy is probably my favorite. He wrote a couple others, but the Divine Conspiracy is probably, yeah.
Okay. Favorite place you have visited?
Favorite place? I don't know if it's favorite, but my wife and I went to Everglades a year and a half ago. I really enjoyed it. Just going through those, all of those natural habitats, and then going, just the whole experience. I think it's probably not my favorite. I just love nature. I began to appreciate it more.
That's
and
awesome.
Everglades just pops up. I also loved visiting Grand Canyon. That was also amazing. Yeah.
Beautiful. What is the place you want to visit?
I want to see the glaciers.
The glaciers. Oh, wow.
Before they melt. They've been melting quite fast, but I hope I still have time to see them.
Yeah, we're not going to get into that discussion here.
Yeah.
What's your favorite music genre?
I listen to contemporary worship music. That's one that's very common, I guess. Probably soft rock, I think, even within the contemporary Christian music. I think some singers are like that. When I was a teenager, I listened to Bryan Adams. So
We'll cut that part out.
Yeah, we'll cut that part out. Maybe you can cut it off. But so those two. I think even within the Christian thing, like Michael W. Smith is actually also... I think he's probably pop rock or something like that, or a little bit of rock. I don't know. I actually don't know much about music genres, so maybe you can cut it out.
Well, you mentioned Michael W. Smith. I think a lot of people can relate.
Yeah. I grew up on that music, and still throughout the years, it's Michael W. Smith has been just inspired music. I feel like it's sort of coming back to me. I have these two albums that I've listened to a lot of times. There's something very... Maybe because I listened to it when I was a new believer. But yeah, okay. You'll do something with that.
Yeah. This one is, do you have an interest in sports? If so, which ones?
No, I'm not a big sports fan. No. I just watch the final games often.
Gotcha. Just to
sports.
find out where it ended, huh?
Yeah.
Sometimes that's a smart thing to do, though.
Yeah,
you avoid
I'm not. I know a lot of people will be like, "How can you?" But I'm just, maybe I don't prioritize. I don't have.
Hey, that's totally okay.
Something that's fallen by the wayside.
Yeah. Everyone's different. And then finally, I know this year has just begun, but what's one thing you're looking forward to for the rest of 2023?
Oh, wow, what's one thing?
Just one.
Yeah, I really don't know what's
finish the second semester.
Maybe finish it. I've started writing a book 2.5 years ago, so I want to do something with it where it takes some shape or form where I can share it. Maybe it's not a book. So professionally or personally, I guess I would like to take it to the stage where it starts serving people and those ideas start getting out there. So I hope maybe in one way, shape or form to launch it maybe by the end of the year. That's something I would really want to accomplish.
That's really cool. That's actually another topic here we can discuss some more.
Maybe
but,
next year.
Yeah, maybe next year. That means we're gonna have to have you back.
Or sooner, yeah.
Or
yeah.
sooner, yeah. Well, thank you, Yuriy, so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing about your life, sharing your experiences, sharing what you're doing now in Ukraine. Thank you for doing that. May God bless you. God bless your family. God bless your ministry in your church. God bless your work you do there in Ukraine, and also as a professor there in Kansas City. Be blessed, and maybe sometime soon we'll have you again. So thank you.
Thank you, Andres. Thank you for having me here. It's always a pleasure.
No problem. And that would be it for today. Thank you for everyone that tuned in and listened. May this bless you guys, bless your homes, and until the next episode of Life Talk.